What would happen if one faction truly won? It is a question whispered across the stars, feared by those who dare to imagine it. The galaxy has burned for 10,000 years. Civilizations rise and fall in endless cycles of fire, faith, and blood. Worlds are consumed, rebuilt, and consumed again. Names vanish. Histories are lost. Yet life clings stubbornly to the ashes. Even so, one truth remains unbroken. There is only war. But what if the war ended? What if one empire, one vision, one will overcame all others? What would the stars look like under their rule? Would peace finally arrive, or would the galaxy descend into a new nightmare? And what of the civilians caught in the middle? Humans, colonists, refugees, slaves. Would they survive under a single ruler, a single ideology, a single god? Or would their lives be shadows of hope, forgotten beneath the weight of empires, monsters, and gods? If the Imperium triumphed completely, would humanity find unity or suffocate under its own fanaticism? If chaos consumed reality, would freedom exist, or would madness devour every soul? If the Necrons ruled, would order prevail, or would life itself vanish beneath perfect silence? If the Tyranids devoured all, would the galaxy rest or hunger for the next universe? If the Orks conquered everything, would existence become eternal war or self-destruction? If the Aeldari restored their empire, could their wisdom heal the galaxy, or would pride bring another fall? If the Tau spread the greater good, would life flourish, or exist only as obedient cogs in a machine? Even for those who remain anonymous in the chaos, their fates hang in the balance. Would they witness a new age, or vanish into the endless tide of war? These are questions no inquisitor dares to speak, no historian records. To imagine the long war ending is to imagine a galaxy that no longer knows itself. Yet the question persists. What would happen if one of them truly won? Tonight, we will explore those possibilities. Every faction's dream, every nightmare, every vision of the galaxy's fate. Not as prophecy, but as imagination. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But what if, for just a moment, there wasn't? This is what would happen if each faction won. But before we start, make sure to subscribe and put a like to the video.
First, we begin with the mightiest empire humanity has ever forged, the Imperium of Man. For 10,000 years, it has survived through faith, discipline, and endless war. But what if it truly won? What if every heretic burned, every Xenos purged, and every world bent unflinchingly to the Emperor's will? The galaxy would appear orderly, vast, and absolute. Star systems aligned, fleets of warships patrolling every sector, planets molded into unbroken instruments of imperial authority. The Emperor's dominion would stretch across the stars with terrifying efficiency, and nothing could oppose it. Every star, every system, every human soul would bear the mark of his vision, and rebellion, however fleeting, would vanish before it could take root. The hive worlds, colossal cities sprawling across entire planets, would thrive under relentless organization. Billions labor ceaselessly to sustain the war machine, producing munitions, starships, and supplies for an empire that never sleeps. The ceaseless hum of factories and forges would become the heartbeat of the galaxy itself. Life in this vision exists only as a function of duty. There is no comfort beyond obedience, no respite beyond faith, no purpose outside service. Yet the Imperium is more than industry and labor. It is war incarnate. The Adeptus Astartes, each chapter spread across the stars, enforce the Emperor's will with precision and terror. Entire sectors could be pacified or purged in days, heretics and alien species alike crushed beneath disciplined assault. The Inquisition operates unseen, rooting out rebellion and corruption before it surfaces, striking silently yet decisively, ensuring no deviation escapes imperial vigilance. The Imperial Navy sweeps across the void, a silent and endless tide of firepower, maintaining order in every orbit, every hyperspace lane, every trade route. Planets once isolated, now integrated into a single galactic machinery, feeding, producing, and obeying. Worlds do not simply submit, they are molded, coerced, and re-engineered to serve a single unstoppable purpose: the survival and expansion of humanity under the Emperor's light. Beyond enforcement, the Imperium governs through belief. The ecclesiastically binds billions in devotion, faith as a weapon as precise as any sword or bolter. Even the most distant planets know the Emperor's will through sermons, edicts, and the ever-present eyes of the ecclesiastically. Faith becomes law. Law becomes iron. The galaxy is unified, not through understanding, but through unshakable obedience. Yet total victory carries its own burdens. Absolute order is a galaxy without flexibility. Bureaucracy stretches across light years, spanning millions of worlds, binding resources, fleets, and personnel into intricate, often fragile patterns. One miscalculation in logistics or communication could ripple across sectors, creating weaknesses even in perfection. The triumph of the Imperium would be magnificent, but brittle, its very scale a potential flaw. The philosophical consequences are profound. Freedom would vanish beneath the weight of structure. Innovation would stagnate, creativity curtailed, individuality sacrificed for the stability of the whole. Humanity would endure, yes, but perhaps as a species perfected for obedience rather than imagination. The galaxy might flourish in survival, but its spirit would be tempered, restrained, and reshaped to serve an eternal, unyielding empire. Even the Imperium's enemies, if they survived in secret, would live in shadows, diminished and crushed. Xenos empires would fall to extermination campaigns or enslavement. Heretics would find no refuge. Chaos would be contained, the warp's influence curtailed by relentless enforcement and unwavering devotion. Every rebellion quelled, every threat eliminated, every star under imperial dominion. Yet even in absolute victory, the Imperium could not fully anticipate the sparks of defiance that might emerge, however small. On frontier worlds, where communication lags and the galaxy's reach is stretched thin, whispers of resistance might persist. These flickers of rebellion are tiny, almost inconsequential, yet they hint at the immutable truth: life and defiance cannot be completely erased. Every obedient system, every loyal citizen contributes to the Empire's might. Yet within the vast machinery of the Imperium, unseen forces quietly remind the galaxy that control is never absolute. Victory also reshapes the galaxy's appearance. Hive worlds pulse with unbroken light. Planet span and forges sculpt the surface into perfection. Fleets patrol endlessly, and the void hums with the constant activity of a civilization that knows no rest. Even the stars seem to obey, shining over systems disciplined by centuries of human will. The galaxy is orderly, magnificent, and terrifying in its scale and unity. And yet, the very perfection of the Imperium may be its greatest danger. Stagnation, rigidity, and overreach could one day crumble this vast dominion. Could humanity survive not only the enemies outside, but the weight of its own empire? Could a species ruled entirely by faith, law, and obedience endure the endless march of time? These questions linger, unanswered even in the light of total victory. Finally, having seen the ultimate triumph of the Imperium, the question arises, what comes next? What happens when a single vision dominates the galaxy utterly? Absolute order brings stability, but also inevitability. The universe bends beneath one will, yet perfection is never permanent. Even in the Emperor's victory, the seeds of future conflict lie dormant, waiting to awaken.
Next, we turn to the dark tide that threatens to unmake everything: chaos. For millennia, the warp has seethed with the desires, fears, and ambitions of mortals and gods alike. It is a force of infinite possibility, boundless corruption, and unrelenting hunger. But what if chaos triumphed? What if the power of the warp overcame reality itself, consuming every star, every world, every civilization in its unending appetite? The galaxy would fracture under forces no law, empire, or army could withstand. Space itself would warp and twist, reality bending to the capricious whims of the chaos gods. Entire star systems could vanish in a heartbeat, consumed by storms of psychic energy or torn asunder by demonic armies. The laws of physics would falter, time and space losing meaning, leaving the stars in a state of eternal instability. Mortals and immortals alike would tremble under the influence of chaos. The Emperor, even at the height of his power, could not contain it. Planets loyal to the Imperium would fall, their populations twisted into monstrosities or utterly consumed. Xenospecies would find no sanctuary, their empires crumbling beneath demonic invasion and psychic corruption. The galaxy would be a theater of eternal suffering, ruled not by law, order, or reason, but by the chaotic whims of forces beyond comprehension. The followers of chaos, both mortal and immortal, would rise unchallenged. The traitor legions of the Space Marines would not merely fight, they would conquer, subjugate, and transform worlds into bastions of worship to the dark gods. Demons would pour into the material universe, claiming the stars as their own, reshaping planets to reflect the grotesque desires of their patrons. Entire stars could bleed. Entire systems twisted into grotesque reflections of the warp's power. Yet victory for chaos is not simple dominion, it is annihilation and transformation. Civilizations are not just destroyed, they are rewritten, molded into tools of worship or sacrifice to feed the insatiable hunger of the gods. Time itself becomes a weapon, erasing histories, distorting memories, and corrupting reality so completely that survival is meaningless. The universe becomes a reflection of desire without restraint, a nightmare from which there is no waking. The philosophical consequences are profound. Where the Imperium imposes order, chaos imposes entropy. Where civilizations once thrived, now only the twisted echoes of life remain. A planet might rise in prosperity one moment and crumble into demonic nightmare the next. Loyalty is replaced by devotion to capricious gods. Logic is replaced by madness. Structure replaced by infinite variation. There is no permanence, no safety, no guarantee, only change, destruction, and the whims of forces beyond mortal comprehension. Even armies cannot claim true victory. Loyalist forces, Xenos defenders, and even those who wield psychic power would find themselves powerless against the ever-shifting tide of chaos. Strategies fail, fortresses collapse, and fleets vanish into warp storms without warning. Nothing can be predicted, nothing can be contained. Victory itself becomes meaningless, for even the conquerors are reshaped into instruments of corruption, no longer masters of their own destiny. Chaos victory is also profoundly seductive. Those who survive find themselves altered, their minds stretched, their morals inverted, their desires consumed. Power flows endlessly from the warp, and yet it is a poison, intoxicating, consuming, inevitable. Entire species, entire systems, entire civilizations may worship the dark gods willingly, and yet their freedom is an illusion, their choices preordained by forces beyond comprehension. And yet, in this victory, life endures in strange, distorted forms. New civilizations arise in the shadow of corruption, bound to chaos, yet striving for identity. Planets might bloom with horrific beauty, teeming with life born from warp influence rather than natural order. Stars may burn in unnatural hues, fleets may sail upon psychic currents, and new gods may arise to claim fragments of reality for themselves. Even in ruin, existence persists, but never as it once was. Finally, having seen the triumph of chaos, we understand the price of victory in its purest, most horrifying form. A galaxy under the sway of the warp is a galaxy without stability, without reason, without hope in the sense mortals understand it. There is power, there is awe, there is immortality, but always at the cost of reality itself. Even the strongest rulers, the most cunning strategists, the most faithful soldiers are nothing more than pawns in a game they cannot comprehend.
Now we turn from the chaos of the warp to a dominion older than humanity itself, the Necrons. For eons they slumbered beneath the surface of countless worlds, their tombs silent, their plans patient, and their ambitions unyielding. But what if the Necrons? The galaxy would fall into silence. Entire civilizations would vanish, their histories erased, their memories extinguished. Where once worlds teemed with life, now only the metallic glint of Necron constructs remains. Cities, empires, and fleets of organic beings would crumble beneath the precision and efficiency of a race that regards flesh as weak and impermanence as a flaw. The Necrons do not conquer with passion, desire, or ideology. They conquer with inevitability. Their victory is not war, it is erasure. Entire star systems would be reclaimed in unerring order. Tomb worlds awaken, legions of warriors march across planets, and nothing resists. Xenos races are exterminated or absorbed, their species reduced to fossilized relics or mindless servitude. The Imperium itself, even at the height of its power, would crumble beneath fleets of unfeeling, immortal soldiers. Their fortresses would be rendered meaningless by the cold precision of a race that has waited millennia for this moment. The Necrons' dominion is absolute, but it is not violent in the same way as Chaos or the Imperium. There is no worship, no ideology, no devotion, only the certainty of death for all who oppose them. Every planet conquered becomes part of the machine, its surface reshaped to serve the purposes of immortality and order. Even stars are harnessed, drained of energy, and incorporated into the silent economy of their empire. The galaxy itself bends to their will. Imagine worlds devoid of organic life, yet vibrant in metallic perfection. Cities rise in geometric precision, landscapes reshaped for efficiency and control. Monoliths pierce the skies, weapons bristling with destructive power, ready to annihilate any sign of resistance. The stars themselves shine over a galaxy meticulously engineered, ordered, and eternal. Yet even in victory, the Necrons are indifferent to the drama of life. Civilizations do not suffer in the poetic sense, they simply cease.
Death is not tragic. It is natural, inevitable, absolute. Entire cultures vanish, not in agony or despair, but in the quiet inevitability that defines the Necron's vision. In this dominion, emotion, morality, and ambition have no meaning, only precision, order, and endless control. Philosophically, the Necron victory represents the ultimate triumph of permanence over impermanence. Chaos is disorder. The Imperium is fragile order. The Tyranids consume and adapt. The Necrons endure beyond all change. The galaxy under their rule is frozen in time, every fluctuation and uncertainty stripped away. Life may be extinguished, yet the universe persists in a state of perfect, silent balance. Even the warp, the undying gods, and all psychic forces are muted under Necron supremacy. Immortality is weaponized, not for glory, but for domination. Entire fleets of Necron ships move through the void, timeless and inexhaustible, reshaping stars and systems with the inevitability of a clockwork mechanism. Nothing escapes their influence. Nothing resists. Even hope, the most intangible and dangerous of forces, is neutralized. But as inevitable as their victory is, questions remain. Could the galaxy endure such lifeless perfection indefinitely? Could existence itself survive under a dominion that extinguishes vitality? Even immortality carries limits, and the universe is vast. Yet the Necrons' patience is eternal. They have already waited millennia, and they will endure millennia more. Their reign is measured in eons, not years, and in this span, the galaxy is theirs, silent and immutable. Finally, having envisioned the ultimate triumph of the Necrons, we see a galaxy transformed into a monument to eternity. Stars, planets, fleets, and systems all obey the relentless logic of machines that cannot tire, falter, or feel. There is no rebellion, no chaos, no emotion, only precision, order, and silence.
Next, we turn to a threat that does not seek dominion, order, or worship, but absolute consumption. The Tyranids are the galaxy's ultimate predators, an intelligence that spans the void, a force that perceives life not as beauty, not as a species to cherish, but as biomass to be devoured. But what if the Tyranids truly won? What if every star, every world, every living thing fell into the endless hunger of the hive mind? The galaxy would be stripped bare. Planets once vibrant with life would be reduced to barren husks. Oceans would be drained, forests consumed, cities dismantled and reshaped into food for an ever-growing swarm. Entire civilizations would vanish, their legacies obliterated not in fire, not in war, but through the relentless efficiency of predation. Nothing could withstand their hunger. No technology, no psychic power, no fleet could endure against a force that adapts, evolves, and learns with each encounter. Imagine the hive fleets, colossal armadas of bio-ships darkening the void as they descend upon star systems. Each ship is a universe unto itself, a living organism of unimaginable scale, producing endless waves of organisms designed solely to consume. World after world would fall, stripped of life and left as raw matter, feeding the ever-growing swarm. Resistance would be meaningless, fleeting, and tragic. Even the mightiest fortresses and fleets would be reduced to nothing, their destruction occurring before comprehension itself. The hive mind's intelligence is vast, almost infinite, and terrifyingly adaptive. Each battle teaches, each encounter informs, each victory strengthens. Strategies evolve faster than any human or alien mind can perceive, and entire species are rewritten as prey or biological fuel. The galaxy does not simply fall. It is digested, analyzed, and transformed into something entirely alien. Survival is impossible. Every planet is a nutrient source, every star system a banquet. The consequences are profound. Life in every form becomes ephemeral. Organic structures, once the pinnacle of evolution, are consumed as if they were insignificant. The Tyranids do not wage war for glory or ideology. They are a process, an inevitability. Entire empires, the proudest civilizations of the galaxy, would vanish from history, leaving only silence and devoured matter in their wake. Even the immortal Necrons, who have endured millennia, would struggle against the unending tide, forced to respond to an enemy that adapts faster than machines can anticipate. Philosophically, the Tyranid victory is the ultimate conclusion of all things: entropy, consumption, and finality. Unlike the Imperium's order or chaos's madness, the hive mind's triumph offers no hope, no purpose, no meaning, only the continuation of the feast. Every action, every battle, every resistance is absorbed, converted into biomass, and turned to serve the insatiable hunger. The galaxy ceases to be a home for life and becomes a reservoir for the infinite appetites of the swarm. Even the warp offers no sanctuary. Chaos may corrupt, the Necrons may endure, but the Tyranids care nothing for gods, machines, or devotion. They consume all equally, indifferent to power, history, or identity. Planets are stripped to their cores, civilizations dissolved, species erased. The galaxy becomes a hollow shell, a skeletal network of worlds waiting to be consumed by the next wave of the hive fleet. Yet there is a terrible elegance to their victory. In their perfection, in their inevitability, there is no cruelty, no malice, only the unrelenting execution of a purpose as old as the stars themselves. The hive mind does not rejoice, it does not mourn, it simply consumes, and through consumption, it continues. Every organism, every tree, every city becomes part of something larger, integrated into a machine beyond comprehension. Life ends, yet is reborn as part of the infinite organism that is the Tyranids. Finally, having witnessed the ultimate triumph of the Tyranids, the galaxy is no longer recognizable. Stars burn over worlds that once supported life, now hollowed and devoured. Civilizations vanish, and even memory of them fades. The universe itself becomes a playground of hunger, a theater in which nothing can survive, yet the process continues. Victory is not conquest, not order, not chaos. It is finality, absolute and unending.
Now we turn to a very different vision of dominance, one not rooted in fire, flesh, or instinct, but in ideology, diplomacy, and technological mastery. The Tau Empire, still young in galactic terms, seeks not conquest through violence, but through assimilation, persuasion, and the unyielding drive of the greater good. But what if the Tau truly won? What if their vision spread across every star, every world, every species, until the galaxy itself bent to their principles? The galaxy would be transformed into a tapestry of cooperation and order, woven tightly under the banner of the greater good. Planets once torn by war would flourish under coordinated administration. Star systems would be linked by trade, communication, and shared purpose. Even former enemies, from isolated human colonies to alien civilizations, would be brought into the orbit of Tau influence, their individuality gradually aligned with collective vision. The Tau's victory would be subtle, yet absolute. Their fleets, armed with precision technology, would patrol the stars, but not simply to destroy, to integrate. Resistance would be met with overwhelming efficiency, worlds persuaded through diplomacy, trade, and technological aid, or, if necessary, subdued with overwhelming force. The Imperium, Chaos, and even the Tyranids would face a galaxy that had been methodically reorganized, every power either assimilated, neutralized, or rendered irrelevant. Every corner of the galaxy would bear the mark of Tau influence. Cities would be rebuilt to optimize efficiency, education standardized to align with the principles of the greater good, and civilizations once fractured by fear or ambition guided toward cooperation. Conflict would not vanish entirely. As with any order, pockets of dissent would arise, yet the Tau's philosophy emphasizes integration over annihilation. Even opposition would be systematically transformed, not destroyed without purpose. Technological advancement would accelerate under Tau guidance. Starships, orbital defenses, and industrial networks would operate in harmony across entire systems, resources pooled for maximum effectiveness. Worlds would become nodes in a galactic network, each contributing to the whole, each benefiting from shared knowledge and protection. In this vision, the galaxy's potential is realized through unity, planning, and cooperation, a stark contrast to the endless conflict that defines most other factions. Yet even victory carries subtle perils. Individuality, freedom, and diversity might be sacrificed for harmony. Civilizations absorbed into the Tau fold would gain security, longevity, and prosperity, but at the cost of autonomy. Resistance would be rare, but its suppression inevitable, leaving a galaxy ordered but uniform. Philosophical questions arise. Is a universe guided entirely by one principle, however benevolent, truly free? Or does the greater good impose a different kind of domination, one without overt cruelty, but just as total? The Tau's victory also redefines warfare itself. Battles are fought not for hatred, but for necessity, efficiency, and strategic gain. The greater good governs every decision, ensuring minimal waste, maximum integration, and long-term stability. Where other empires wage war endlessly, the Tau use force as a tool, precise, calculated, and effective, ensuring that no conflict can threaten the overarching vision. The galaxy, in essence, becomes a living machine of cooperation, every system functioning in synchrony with the whole. Even Xenos races once considered enemies could find themselves incorporated into this vision. Some might join willingly, drawn to the promise of stability and progress. Others would be subjugated through force, gradually reshaped to conform to the Tau's ideals. Entire civilizations could be remade in their image, not through destruction, but through education, technology, and structured governance. In this, the greater good becomes both shield and sword, protection for those who obey, inevitability for those who resist. Finally, having seen the ultimate triumph of the Tau, the galaxy is no longer a battlefield of endless conflict, but a meticulously ordered network of planets, fleets, and civilizations, each aligned with a singular principle. Victory is not fire, not blood, not consumption, but unity, efficient, purposeful, and absolute. The galaxy thrives in a harmony that many would call perfection, yet perfection demands sacrifice, and the cost is subtle but complete.
Next, we turn to a force unlike any other, a civilization driven not by order, not by faith, not by survival, but by the pure, unrelenting love of war. The Orks are chaos incarnate, a species that thrives in conflict, where every battle is a festival and every victory a celebration. But what if the Orks truly won? What if every star,
Every world, every system fell under the thunderous, unstoppable tide of the Wa. The galaxy would descend into a spectacle of eternal conflict. Planets would no longer be cities, kingdoms, or empires. They would be battlefields where green-skinned warriors fight endlessly for fun, honor, and glory. The Wa is more than an army. It is a force of nature, a psychic gestalt of violence and joy that grows stronger with every fight. Nothing resists, nothing survives unscarred. The Orks themselves are the ultimate expression of galactic anarchy, thriving wherever order is attempted. Star systems would be engulfed in endless campaigns. Orkrites, ramshackle yet terrifyingly effective, would warp across the void, crashing into worlds with reckless abandon. Fortresses would be overrun, cities burned, and civilizations flattened under the weight of their sheer numbers and ferocity. Even the most advanced defense systems would crumble under the unpredictability of Ork strategy, for Orks are guided not by logic, but by instinct, luck, and the psychic resonance of their Wa energy. Imagine worlds where entire continents are reshaped into arenas, weapons factories, and sprawling encampments. Mountains might be flattened for shootas and war machines, forests cleared for squigs and mobs of infantry. Every battle would leave scars across landscapes, yet these scars would be celebrated, memorialized in crude monuments, murals, and the exuberant shouts of Ork warriors. Life itself would be measured in the roar of guns, the clash of metal, and the endless cadence of war. Even the concept of civilization would bend to their will. Diplomacy, ideology, and morality would collapse under the joyful violence of the Orks. The Imperium, Chaos, Tau, and Tyranids would find themselves overwhelmed not by strategy or technology, but by the unstoppable momentum of numbers, zeal, and unthinking aggression. A single Wa could engulf a planet, a system, or even a cluster of stars, leaving devastation and laughter in equal measure. Yet, in the heart of the Wa lies a strange kind of order. The Orks understand hierarchy, leadership, and loyalty, albeit through violence. War bosses rise to power through strength and cunning, leading their hordes across the galaxy with an unquenchable desire to fight. Even in their chaos, there is structure, brutal and temporary, maintained only by might and the psychic bond of the Wa itself. Philosophically, the Orks' victory represents the ultimate triumph of instinct over intellect, chaos over order, and enjoyment over responsibility. Life and death are irrelevant, only the thrill of combat matters. Civilization is not measured in longevity, culture, or science, but in the magnitude and joy of the battles fought. The galaxy becomes a living testament to war as art, destruction as creation, and chaos as life. Even the Tyranids, who consume indiscriminately, or the Necrons, who enforce absolute silence, would be challenged by the Wa. The Orks' psychic energy, their sheer enthusiasm for fighting, and their unpredictable behavior defy strategy. Entire fleets could be destroyed, planets reduced to rubble, and the Wa persists, adapts, and grows stronger. There is no end, only more fighting, more triumphs, and more destruction. Finally, having envisioned the ultimate triumph of the Orks, the galaxy is transformed into a carnival of conflict. Stars burn above battlefields, planets are reshaped by combat, and civilizations either fall, flee, or join in the revelry. Victory is not measured in order or survival, but in the endless continuation of war. The Wa never ends, and the galaxy itself becomes a living playground for the green tide. Next, we turn to a civilization both ancient and tragic, a people whose history is written in loss, artistry, and unimaginable power, the Aeldari. Once rulers of the stars, their empire shattered by hubris and the birth of Slaanesh, they have survived only in scattered remnants, hidden worlds, and fragmented craft worlds. But what if the Aeldari truly won? What if their vision of the galaxy was restored, their empire rebuilt, and their influence reclaimed every star system they once ruled? The galaxy would shimmer with elegance, strategy, and psychic brilliance. Worlds would be crafted as monuments to their mastery of art, architecture, and technology. Each city a seamless integration of living psychic energy and intricate design. Craft worlds, orbiting silently in the void, would serve as centers of knowledge, power, and diplomacy, guiding civilizations toward stability, innovation, and enlightenment. Every battle the Aeldari fought would be decisive, swift, and calculated. Entire fleets would vanish in a single strike, entire armies outmaneuvered before they could act. Their psychic powers would shape events on a cosmic scale, bending probabilities, altering outcomes, and orchestrating victories that seemed inevitable. Unlike the Orks, whose triumph relies on chaos, or the Imperium, whose strength is in numbers, the Aeldari rely on foresight, subtlety, and the mastery of forces both material and immaterial. Xenos races would find themselves courted or contained, their place in the galaxy carefully calibrated. Those willing to cooperate might flourish under the protection and guidance of the Aeldari, while those that resist could be outmaneuvered, isolated, or eradicated with precision. Even the Imperium and Chaos could be restrained through cunning, diplomacy, and psychic manipulation. Each confrontation a carefully orchestrated step toward a galaxy aligned with the Aeldari's vision. Yet victory for the Aeldari is fragile, for their greatest strength is also their greatest vulnerability, their pride, their foresight, and their isolation. The webway allows near instantaneous travel, and their psychic might ensures control over life and matter. But the empire is dependent on the discipline, knowledge, and will of its leaders. Even the smallest misstep could cascade into catastrophe. Their perfection is never absolute. It is maintained by vigilance, foresight, and constant adaptation. Philosophically, the Aeldari victory represents a universe guided by intelligence, foresight, and preservation of culture, rather than conquest, consumption, or chaos. Life thrives in beauty, knowledge, and structure, and yet there is always a tension between freedom and control, between art and utility, between preservation and dominance. Life is elevated, yet always under the careful watch of a race that remembers its own hubris. Worlds are reborn in their image. Forests, oceans, and cities flourish with psychic resonance, each environment optimized for growth, creativity, and strategic utility. Populations are guided, not crushed, their culture enhanced rather than erased. Technology and psychic power intertwine, forming a network of intelligence, observation, and subtle governance that spans the galaxy. The stars themselves seem to bend in recognition of this ancient race's dominion, shining brighter under the touch of Aeldari mastery. Even the darkest corners of the galaxy, haunted systems, warp-tainted worlds, and the remnants of chaos are brought into balance. Demonic incursions are anticipated and neutralized before they manifest. The tendrils of Slaanesh restrained through psychic mastery and precise intervention. Entire systems might live in peace for the first time in millennia. their histories preserved, their potential realized, their futures guided with grace. Yet with such power comes the weight of eternity. The Aeldari must govern without arrogance, manipulate without cruelty, and anticipate without fail. Victory is not simply a conquest of worlds, but a stewardship of civilizations, an orchestration of histories, and a preservation of life itself, fragile, fleeting, and infinitely precious. Even their enemies, confronted by this subtle and absolute mastery, might find themselves awed, humbled, or irrevocably changed. Finally, having envisioned the ultimate triumph of the Aeldari, the galaxy as a place of elegance, order, and beauty, life thrives, knowledge expands, and civilizations flourish under the watchful guidance of a people who have survived countless millennia, learning from mistakes and mastering their destiny. Victory is not measured in war, consumption, or chaos, but in the careful, deliberate orchestration of the galaxy's future.
Next, we turn to a civilization that thrives not on order, not on unity, but on suffering itself. The Drukhari, the Dark Eldar. Born from the corruption and excesses that shattered the Aeldari Empire, they have mastered cruelty, subjugation, and terror, sustaining their existence on the torment of others. But what if the Drukhari truly won? What if their sadistic dominion stretched across the stars, turning the galaxy into a theater of fear, agony, and unending slaughter? The galaxy would become a vast infernal playground for cruelty. Planets would no longer serve life or civilization. They would exist as arenas of torment. Entire populations would be captured, enslaved, or harvested, their suffering fueling the twisted power of the Drukhari. Cities would be reconstructed as fortresses and pleasure cages, bristling with weapons, devices, and machinery designed to extract pain, fear, and despair. No world would escape the reach of their fleets, for the Drukhari do not merely conquer, they dominate, subjugate, and terrorize without mercy. Their raiding fleets, the Kabbalite armadas and raider ships, would glide silently through the void, striking with precision, leaving entire star systems in ruin. Unlike other factions whose victories are marked by subjugation or assimilation, the Drukhari victory is aesthetic and psychological. Terror is weaponized, suffering becomes currency, and existence itself is redefined as a resource to be harvested. Life persists only as a means to feed the insatiable hunger for agony. Entire civilizations would vanish not simply through war, but through the systematic stripping of hope, freedom, and dignity. Families are torn apart, cultures erased, and histories rewritten by fear. The Drukhari do not seek to create or preserve. They seek to consume the spirit of life itself. A planet may appear intact, its surface beautiful or functional, yet beneath lies a lattice of torment, its populations enslaved, experimented upon, or poised as offerings for the Cabbal's delight. Even the most powerful empires, the Imperium, the Tal, the Aeldari themselves, would find their victories hollow. The Drukhari do not rely on numbers or fleets alone. They rely on terror, cunning, and the exploitation of weaknesses invisible to those blinded by strength. A single raid could destabilize entire systems, shatter alliances, and spread fear faster than any war could. Survival is temporary, and resistance is an illusion. Those who fight back
often find themselves ensnared, their suffering immortalized in the twisted artistry of their captors. Philosophically, the Drukhari victory represents a universe ruled by the appetite for pain and control. Order and chaos become secondary to dominance and sadistic efficiency. The galaxy is reshaped not by ideology, morality, or necessity, but by the aesthetic of suffering itself. Civilization is reduced to a tool, a canvas upon which terror is painted, and life itself becomes an instrument of the dark Aeldar's endless feast. The consequences are chilling. Trade routes, communication networks, and entire planetary infrastructures are repurposed for cruelty. Worlds may appear productive, but every action, every resource, and every individual exists to enhance the Kabbalite machine. Technology is adapted for subjugation, not advancement. Fleets patrol not to protect, but to instill dread. Even the warp becomes a conduit for pain, a means to torment across distances, amplifying the terror of the Drukhari across the stars. And yet, in this darkness, there is efficiency. The Drukhari are not chaotic in the way of the Orks or the Tyranids. Their cruelty is methodical, deliberate, and exact. Every raid, every punishment, every torture device is calculated to maximize suffering while consolidating power. No action is wasted, no opportunity ignored. The galaxy bends to their design, a web of terror in which all life is ensnared. And finally, having witnessed the ultimate triumph of the Drukhari, the galaxy is unrecognizable. Stars shine over worlds of fear. Fleets glide silently through empty voids above enslaved planets, and civilizations exist only as instruments of torment. Victory is not survival, not order, not freedom. It is domination of the spirit, control over existence itself, and the eternal perpetuation of agony.
Next, we turn to a civilization defined by devotion to knowledge, machinery, and the divine fusion of technology with faith, the Adeptus Mechanicus. Across millennia, they have preserved and venerated technology as sacred, seeing the machine as both tool and God. But what if the Adeptus Mechanicus truly won? What if every star, every planet, every civilization bent beneath the relentless pursuit of the Omnissiah's will, reshaping the galaxy into a realm of steel, ritual, and perfection? The galaxy would become a cathedral of machinery. Planets would be transformed into massive manufactorums, forge worlds extending across continents and into orbit, their atmospheres thick with smoke, ionized energy, and the constant hum of engines. Cities would rise as monuments to industrial might, bristling with cogitators, servitors, and constructs designed to maintain absolute order. The Adeptus Mechanicus does not merely conquer, it assimilates, converting everything into resources, components, or knowledge to fuel the machine god's vision. Civilizations would not be destroyed outright, but reshaped. Organic life would be preserved only insofar as it serves function, sustenance, or utility. Human worlds would be organized into bureaucracies and production centers, while xenospecies would either be eradicated or studied, their technology absorbed, reverse engineered, and incorporated into the Omnissiah's grand design. The galaxy would hum with efficiency, but at the cost of freedom, culture, and individuality. Every action would be measured, every resource exploited, every planet optimized for maximum output. The Adeptus Mechanicus's fleets would patrol the stars not only to maintain order, but to retrieve lost technology, explore forgotten systems, and reclaim relics of the past. Each vessel is a floating factory,
a temple, and a fortress all at once, crewed by tech priests, servitors, and legions of machines. Entire battles would be fought with the precision of a cogwheel, strategies executed with ritualistic devotion, and victory achieved not by luck or cunning, but by relentless, calculated application of knowledge and firepower. Time itself would bend to their control. Knowledge would be catalogued, preserved, and applied with unerring consistency. The Imperium, Chaos, the Tau, even ancient Xenos civilizations like the Aeldari would find themselves outmaneuvered, overwhelmed, or absorbed by a system that values logic and preservation above emotion or ideology. Rebellions would be crushed not through fear alone, but through the unassailable dominance of technology and ritual, a combination that renders opposition futile. Philosophically, the Mechanicus' victory represents the ultimate fusion of logic, faith, and control. Life is subordinated to utility. Creativity is harnessed for function. Belief becomes a tool to enforce order. The universe itself is a machine. Every star, planet, and civilization a gear within an incomprehensibly complex engine. Power is measured not by armies or psychic force, but by understanding, efficiency, and the ability to harness and control the flow of energy, matter, and information across light years. Planets are transformed into mechanisms of worship. Rivers of molten metal flow through cities, powering cogitators and servitors. Forests are replaced by factories, oceans by cooling systems, mountains by foundries. Even the sky is filled with machinery, orbital guns, energy collectors, and titanic engines that draw power from stars themselves. Life exists only as fuel or operator, and individuality is sacrificed to maintain the perfection of the machine god's design. Yet in this dominion there is order, purpose, and continuity. Unlike chaos, whose victory is entropy, or the Tyranids, whose triumph is consumption, the Mechanicus preserves, not the spirit of life, but the essence of civilization through technology. Histories are catalogued, relics safeguarded, and knowledge continuously expanded. Nothing is left to chance. The galaxy functions like a perfectly tuned engine, every cog in place, every process synchronized. Finally, having envisioned the ultimate triumph of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the galaxy becomes a vast, humming machine of steel, logic, and faith. Stars shine over planets transformed into forges, fleets patrol in ritualistic formation, and civilizations exist to maintain function rather than individuality. Victory is measured not by conquest, chaos, or devotion alone, but by perfection, an age where machinery, worship, and order converge to dominate the stars.
Finally, we must ask the impossible. What if the galaxy's civilians, the farmers, workers, artisans, scholars, and ordinary citizens emerge victorious? Not through fleets, not through psychic power, not through conquest or bloodshed, but through sheer resilience, ingenuity, and determination. What would happen if the people, the backbone of the countless empires, became the rulers of their destiny? The galaxy would transform in ways no faction could anticipate. Planets would be reclaimed from the grip of endless war. Cities once bombarded into ruins would be rebuilt, guided not by fanatical faith, the demands of machines, or the dictates of alien overlords, but by the creativity, compassion, and cooperation of ordinary beings. Life would no longer exist to serve conquest, consumption, or ideology. It would exist for its own sake, fragile, vibrant, and astonishingly adaptive. Without the Imperium's strict hierarchy, humanity would rediscover freedom. Without the Tau's rigid order, diversity would flourish. Without the Tyranids, flesh would remain untouched by consumption. Even the horrors of chaos would lose their grip, for the collective will of the people, unbound by fear,
superstition, or fanaticism could resist the warp's subtle corruption. In this universe, survival itself becomes an act of defiance, and creativity a weapon of unimaginable power. Technology, long hoarded by elites or priests, would be used for the common good. Spacecraft, manufactorums, and fleets would no longer serve endless campaigns or the whims of gods and warlords. Instead, they would ferry goods, connect civilizations, and empower life. Planets would thrive as centers of culture, trade, and science. Humanity and Xenos alike might learn to cooperate, driven not by ideology, but by necessity and mutual benefit. Yet victory for the civilians is not without challenge. Rebuilding a galaxy ravaged by millennia of war requires vision, courage, and endurance. Every faction's legacy, fortresses, war machines, corrupted worlds, and psychic scars would have to be overcome. Even the smallest decision could ripple across star systems, shaping life or death, prosperity or ruin. In this, the civilians are not powerless. They are patient, resilient, and adaptable. Perhaps the most dangerous force of all, for they act without the arrogance, predictability, or rigidity of the galaxy's great powers. Philosophically, the victory of the civilians represents a universe reclaimed by life itself. Order and chaos, faith and fanaticism, war and conquest, all are secondary to survival, growth, and freedom. Civilization becomes defined not by armies or gods, but by communities, ideas, and the human or sentient spirit. Empires rise and fall, but life persists, reshaped and renewed by the will of those who endure. If the civilians won, the galaxy would be unpredictable, messy, and beautiful. Planets might rebuild according to the dreams of those who live there. Technology would be adapted to sustain life rather than destroy it, and cultures long oppressed by warlords, tyrants, or alien masters would finally flourish. Victory would not be about domination, but about preservation, adaptation, and hope. And in this victory, perhaps the galaxy would finally know something it has rarely felt in 10,000 years. A future not dictated by war, power, or hunger, but by the indomitable spirit of life. The stars might still burn, but their light would shine on worlds that endure, not merely survive. And perhaps for the first time, peace could exist. Fragile, imperfect, yet profoundly real.
Having witnessed the triumphs, horrors, and visions of every major faction, and even imagining the impossible victory of ordinary civilians, we are left with a single haunting truth. The galaxy is a canvas upon which power, ambition, and resilience are endlessly painted. From the Imperium's zealous unity to chaos's unmaking of reality, from the Necrons' silent dominion to the Tyranids' insatiable hunger, from the Tau's ordered harmony to the Orks' anarchic revelry, from the Aeldari's elegance to the Drukhari's cruelty, and the Adeptus Mechanicus' unyielding machines, each victory reshapes the stars, each conquest leaves the universe irrevocably altered. Victory is never simple. The Imperium might impose order, yet suffocate freedom. Chaos would unravel reality, yet grant a terrifying freedom beyond comprehension. The Necrons might preserve the galaxy in cold perfection, while the Tyranids consume all life in an endless cycle of hunger. The Tau would unify under the banner of the greater good, orchestrating harmony at the cost of individuality, while the Orks would bring endless conflict, celebration, and chaos. The Aeldari would reclaim lost wisdom, guiding civilizations with foresight, yet burdened by fragility. The Drukhari would spread terror and suffering, and the Adeptus Mechanicus would mold the galaxy into a living engine of steel and faith. And then there are the civilians, the ordinary beings who endure beyond the reach of gods, fleets, and psychers. Their victory is not measured by firepower, psychic might, or ideology, but by resilience, adaptation, and the indomitable will to survive. In their triumph, the galaxy becomes a realm of life itself, messy, unpredictable, and full of potential. Planets are rebuilt according to the dreams of those who inhabit them. Technology serves sustenance rather than war, and the spirit of countless civilizations endures, guided not by conquest, but by hope. Perhaps this is the ultimate truth of the galaxy, that every victory carries consequence. Triumph is never absolute, for every act of domination, assimilation, or consumption reshapes existence itself. The stars burn differently under each faction. Life adapts to every conqueror, and even in victory, the universe remembers, resists, and responds. Power may define moments, but resilience, adaptability, and the will to endure shape eternity. The galaxy's fate is a mirror of its inhabitants. For every empire that rises, for every god that demands obedience, for every machine that enforces order, there exists life that bends, survives, and sometimes even triumphs. The ordinary and the extraordinary alike participate in the ceaseless story of existence. Victory may crown a faction, but the consequences ripple endlessly, touching every star, every world, every soul. And so, we return to the question we began with: what would happen if one faction truly won? The answer is both terrifying and wondrous. The galaxy would be transformed, reshaped, and reborn in the image of that victor. Stars might shine brighter, worlds might flourish or crumble, and civilizations might endure or vanish. Yet the outcome is never simple, for existence itself is an intricate dance of ambition, choice, and consequence. Perhaps no faction can ever win completely. Perhaps the galaxy exists as it does because it must fight, adapt, and survive. Perhaps even in the shadow of omnipotence, the will of life, ordinary, humble, and unassuming, resists, persists, and ultimately endures. And in that possibility, there is hope. A hope that even in the grim darkness of the far future, life can prevail, not by might alone, but by resilience, ingenuity, and the simple, unyielding desire to endure. This is the galaxy of possibilities. This is a universe of triumphs and tragedies, of power and consequence. This is a future that may never be, yet which we can imagine, fleetingly, in the quiet spaces between stars. And perhaps, for just a moment, we can see what it means when one faction wins and when life itself refuses to bow.